Hello, and a very warm welcome back to Gimme a Whole Year, the wrestling podcast hosted by Dom.
And Ant.
Alright, and today, first episode, mate, properly. First
episode of Wrestling Rewind.
Wrestling Rewind. We need to be talking about, or we're going to be talking about Wrestlemania 1.
Wrestlemania 1, very first Wrestlemania.
The biggest extravaganza of them all.
Absolutely. Vince McMahon originally did this, to compete against Starrcade, which was Jim Crockett Productions. And they were having an annual event that was doing really well. And so this was his answer to that, basically.
Yeah, and he did some specials on MTV.
There was,
promote. Yeah. So there was some terribly named pay-per-views. I think the Brawl to End Them All was one of them.
Yeah.
And which there was a couple of promotional matches in order to push WrestleMania 1 onto the masses. It turned out it worked pretty well.
It worked out really well, especially for Vince McMahon.
Massive gamble, wasn't it? He pretty much put everything. It's funny, isn't it? You look back and you take a gamble. I think it's good sometimes to take a gamble in life, especially if you're Vince McMahon, because you can put all your money into something and it'll actually pay off. There was thousands of people.
It worked for him, yeah. And it's still going today, still going strong, and it's opened up many other pay-per-views as well,
Yeah, totally. I mean, obviously, I think Vince is probably looking back, rubbing his. Well, whatever he's rubbing.
His wallet, probably.
His wallet, yeah, absolutely.
First of all, if you want to support the channel at all, you can find us on Patreon, Gimme a Whole Year, Facebook, Gimme a Whole Year, Twitter. Gimme a Whole Year. Hit us up, like the video if you can, comment down below, give us some feedback. Like I say, this is the first time we're doing it, so any feedback is greatly appreciated. Cool, so...
I like that you're wearing your WWE Legends t-shirt as well, man.
This was especially chosen.
There you go. It's all good.
I think it's the only Legend t-shirt I've got at the minute.
Fortunately, we'll have our own. Hopefully by the next episode, we'll have our own t-shirts.
Absolutely, and if you want to get a t-shirt, just hit us up or look on the Patreon.
Yeah, you can comment and, like I say, give us a couple of tweets. Some people have been making comments on the Twitter since we launched yesterday with wrestling moves with Hull in them and famous catchphrases with Hull in them, like we've had holler if you hear me,
holler if you hear me,
holler if you hear me.
What about
Hull in a cell?
Hull in a cell, brilliant.
So more of those, please. That was pretty fun.
Absolutely.
Any great piss taking is always appreciated. Man. So basically, we started off the pay per view. Obviously, you've got me and Gene Oakland commentating. You've got Lord Alfred Hayes. I always liked Lord Alfred Hayes. He was pretty.
Yeah, he always seemed really out of place to me. With he's got a different type of voice compared to everyone else, hasn't he? But yeah, there was me and Gene Oakland backstage. Commentators were Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse the Body Ventura, who I think are one of the greatest commentators of all time.
What an incredible team, yeah.
But apparently Jesse Ventura was really nervous about doing this. Yeah, so Gorilla Monsoon was like holding him up at the start of it because he was really nervous about going out to a live audience as opposed to it being pre-recorded where they could edit stuff in afterwards.
Yeah.
So you got the entrance logo with the Star Wars background, very 1980s.
Classic, yeah. And the cheesy music as well.
Yeah, and then the national anthem.
Of course, there was a story behind that, right? The guest didn't show up, the person that was supposed to do it.
To this day, WWE won't release, or WWF won't release who was the star that was supposed to be there, but the star wasn't Mean Gene Oakland. He basically filled in and did because traditionally, if you look back at future WrestleManias, that's tense all over the place. Meta. You had people like Little Richard doing it, and I think Aretha Franklin did one, and there was all sorts of celebrities. And this is a really celebrity-heavy show as well. So clearly, especially with the link with MTV, they'll have wanted to have a celebrity do it. Didn't turn up. Mean Gene did a rendition.
Not a bad job. No.
You
know what? I respect that. Anybody that has to do it, because obviously it would have been. It's not like he had much time to prepare. Maybe.
Exactly.
So anybody that could do that in front of that kind of audience.
Well, he can't have had much time to prepare because he had notes of the song in his hand.
Yeah. Massive balls. Mean Gene's massive balls. Respect.
So then we moved into the first match, which was the forever go down in history as the first big match of WrestleMania. And we have the Masked Executioner
versus
Tito Santana.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Tito's great, man. What a great talent. And
he was.
He was like the Daniel. Well, not the Daniel. Actually, Daniel Bryan. Probably, probably not the best comparison. Like the Sami Zayn. The Sami Zayn of WrestleMania 1. The guy that could never really catch a break. It was his first and only WrestleMania win.
One. It was. Yeah.
So basically, to have him go on live TV. And go over. To be fair, not a great character, the Masked Executioner, no. But still a nice rub from management there for Tito to do something that he's and it put on a good show. I think the match was very suited to him, quite technical. The Executioner again was pretty. He did some good heel work, I guess, but
the Masked Executioner was Buddy Rose. Who had been in the company not that long. He was basically a jobber, and they'd put the mask gimmick on him to make sure that he was heel, so the audiences understood that Tito was the face in the situation. Before this, he was having main event matches with Bob Buckland. That was sort of the biggest that he ever got when Bob Buckland was the champion at Madison Square Garden. But this was the height of his career. And did you notice in the opening video package, in the video package, there is no video package. In the opening interview, his mask was lopsided as hell.
Yeah, it was.
He had a luchador mask on, and one side of his mask, it was just half of his face, and his nose was really clear on the other side. It was a really, really nasty costume.
Yeah, it was. I don't know how he managed that, but it was cool. I mean, and Tito, like I say, for all the good, he'd just come out of a massive feud for the Intercontinental title with Greg Valentine.
Right.
So I think that to go from that to the Executioner, even though it was on the grandest stage of them all.
They did mention Greg Valentine, didn't they? Within the commentary scene, did mention Greg Valentine, and that played into one of the matches later on.
Absolutely,
as well.
Yeah.
But it was sort of an introduction really to Tito. But the match was okay. I mean, Tito very much led it, but Tito was a good talent in the ring.
Like I say, proper workhorse.
Yeah. The other thing I noticed about this match, one of the first things I noticed actually, the amount of bounce on the ropes compared to what we're used to nowadays was ridiculous. Like when Tito won and he went to stand up on the turnbuckle, the sag on the ropes nearly made him bounce. And one of the first moves that they do in the match is where they're running against the ropes, and you can see how much sag they had compared to what you get nowadays. The Undertaker could never have done his rope move.
Done the classic rope walk.
Yeah, could never have done that without with ropes like this. They were just so saggy, and that was a bit different to see. You got what else to say about the match?
Well, I think I'm just glad to never ever see the Masked Executioner again, because that's the kind of thing that would happen to us if we had to be I think in WrestleMania, I think we'd have a lopsided mask, maybe maybe that kind of costume. Even in 2017, I think you could probably rock a Masked Executioner.
Probably, yeah. Thanks. You'd like to hide my face.
Yeah. What was your? Are we doing the match rating for this one, or do you want to do the pay-per-view?
We'll do a pay-per-view rating at the end.
Cool. To be fair, I'd give it probably a 3 if I was going to give it something.
Really? What, out of 5?
Yeah, I think
I'd go 1 or 2.
You go 1 or 2?
Yeah, it was alright. I mean, it was a solid match, but it wasn't Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker.
Not quite.
Tito won with a figure 4 leg lock. It was okay. It was a good opener.
It was okay. It was alright.
Next match was King Kong Bundy with Jimmy Hart versus Special Delivery.
Yes, SD Jones, man. I mean, again, an enhancement talent, pretty much. SD Jones. He was there to make Bundy look good in a very short period of time. The match was supposed to end in 8 seconds. If you actually count it, it's past 20 seconds. But
about
we don't talk about that, and they still don't talk about that to this day.
No.
Apparently, that was to do with the fact that SD wasn't happy with losing in such a quick amount of time, so he held on and botched the end, the beginning and the end, because it's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
And Special Delivery Jones had a decent enough career before that and post that as well. Won a couple of tag team championships in various different promotions, and I would have said he was a really good talent, and perhaps didn't deserve to be the guy that was in that situation, you know. But then at the same time, King Kong Bundy needed to look very, very strong.
He did, yeah.
And he did come out looking very strong.
He did.
Obviously, you know, I think I've always been a big fan of King Kong Bundy.
Yeah,
I thought he was a monster in a time.
He was sold as a monster
in a time, you know, in a time where you know, guys like him and Andre the Giant and John Studd. I mean, it was a business of monsters, but he really stood out.
Yeah, he was.
Did Bundy?
He looked like King Kong. You know?
Absolutely, he just looked angry and mean. But
I think his name was Daddy Bundy at one point, which you know. But then you've got like the reference to British wrestling now with Big Daddy and stuff like that. But then, like I say, special delivery. You know, like I say, he was a good worker, and I thought he had a great personality. His pre-show interview was pretty great. I thought he was definitely a clear, which is what I found quite odd. He was always a clear fan favourite in his career. Yeah.
And so
maybe not when because he fought Undertaker a couple of years later, didn't he? He was part of the heel versus Undertaker a few years later. He was part of the AWA and the NWA, and part of his gimmick while he was across there was that he'd actually go for the 5 count. He'd make the referee count for 5. Instead of
King
for
Kong
3.
Bundy. Yeah, I was thinking special delivery, and then I was like,
King Kong Bundy.
King Kong Bundy. Yeah, no, I remember that. Yeah. I remember the 5 count.
Yeah, but he'd only come into the WWF on the 15th of March, and this was it between the 28th and 31st of March.
Wasn't far between that, yeah.
He'd only been as part of the roster for 2 weeks before, so there's no sort of previous feuds or anything. And the match was simple, wasn't it? It was a bear hug, avalanche, and then pin, basically.
It was
giant splash.
Yeah, the giant splash, you know, and I think that, like I say, there's not much more to say on this one except for the fact that King Kong Bundy came out looking like an absolute beast,
monster,
and a special delivery. Poor SD was just an enhancement talent to make him look better. Obviously, you got Jimmy Hart there on you know as well. You know, Jimmy Hart with King Kong Bundy again, one of the greatest managers of all time, the Mouth of the South, one of the greatest at building talent and one of the greatest at making talent look great. And I think that, again, having him behind Bundy at that stage in his career would have only helped, did only help
absolutely
Bundy's legacy, and also Jimmy Hart's legacy as the guy that could build, and probably arguably the greatest. You know, even with Paul Heyman, Jimmy Hart, the greatest stable of wrestlers, like a number of stable. I mean, you look at, you know, Heyman. You know, he's had Lesnar, and then they had like Cesaro and all those other people, but they never did anything with them. Whereas Jimmy Hart had a consistent legacy of building credible stars. Yeah. And so watching Jimmy Hart here and having him rub on, not literally of course, having him rub on King Kong Bundy definitely helped his career going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there was a thing with managers back then. There was a lot of managers. It's something that you don't see in the WWE as much anymore. But back then, most of the matches would have a manager in. And then the one thing about this match is I don't think Jimmy Hart added anything to the match. You know, he didn't have his megaphone. No. He wasn't involved in the finish because there was no match. Really, it was a 24-second long, you know, walkover. No, Jimmy Hart was great. I'm sure it helped King Kong Bundy later on.
I believe it's the star power. I think it was association.
This is a legitimate wrestler. He's got Jimmy Hart as a manager.
Absolutely. No, I think that one's probably the quickest. It's the quickest match on the card, and it's probably the quickest one we'll deal with today.
Yeah, it's the quickest one we'll deal with for years. I think. I don't think it was beaten till.
No, it wasn't beaten till Eric Rowan versus The Rock.
Well, I saw that, but then I also saw there was Kane versus someone as well. That was a really quick match. I don't know if it was at WrestleMania though or not.
No, I don't think it was Mania. Right. I think that in my esteemed research. It was Rowan versus The Rock, which was actually 8 seconds.
Yeah, and that was because although the match went on 24 seconds, and anyone can clearly see it went on, you know, roughly that time. In the record books, it was 9 seconds for 30 odd years.
Sports entertainment.
Reality is not real. Next, let's talk about the next match, which was unless you've got else for that.
No, I'm finished with that one. I'm finished. Yeah, the closest, the quickest we can move on to Ricky Steamboat.
Ricky Steamboat.
Bruno Sammartino. Well, not Bruno Sammartino. David Sammartino, I believe. Yeah.
No, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat versus Matt Bourne.
Oh yeah, of course.
The Maniac.
I'm speeding ahead.
You are speeding ahead. Like King Kong Bundy, Matt Bourne had only joined the WWF in that month. So again, he was fairly new talent. He was only in the company during this run for another month as well, after he'd finished this. But he'd come back in 1992, where Matt Bourne had transformed into the first Doink that me and you both like, actually, don't we? Like the heel Doink. A little bit of
Doink. I think we talked about this in the intro. Yeah, I love a bit of Doink. Classic.
Yeah. Tell us a bit about Ricky.
I think, he's an absolute legend, built from Hawaii today. You saw a lot of the signature chops. You saw a lot of those kind of key identifiers that we still love him for.
Yeah.
And he just, it wasn't a squash match by any means at all, but it was very much, again, similar thing as the previous match. He was built to look very strong. He was built to look almost like a superhero in a day again where there was a lot of superheroes. He was another one you would put alongside Hogan, and you would put alongside Randy Savage.
WrestleMania 3 match with Randy Savage.
Yeah, of
incredible.
Course. He was the superhero of the time, and he was in a feud. It was going to be. This was all leading towards those kind of feuds with Macho Man Randy Savage. So again, this was the very early seeds planted by Vince McMahon to build on those feuds and to make Steamboat look really, really strong.
And he does. He looks great. He carries the match.
100%,
big time.
And that's not to take away from Bourne.
No,
but I think he was still finding his character.
He was younger, yeah. Steamboat did a couple of really nice flips over Bourne during the match.
Yeah, I thought so. I mean, it was pretty scientific. It was very technical in parts, and I thought that was for the old school wrestling fan. I thought it was a great looking match. Do you know what I mean? There was there was a little bit back and forth, but at the same time, you're right. You could clearly see that Steamboat was carrying the match.
Yeah. But that was okay because he could carry a match, and he had a character. And his character work in the ring was excellent, and it really gives that impression that he had his own style, and you could recognise that style. And then later on he became even more comic booky with the wings and the hat and the flames as we come on. This is a very early sort of Ricky Steamboat in the WWF just before that. But it was really good. I thought the match was good.
Yeah, I'm a fan of it. I think because Steamboat came out looking strong, which was the point. Matt Bourne. A lot of work to do, but he obviously came out very well in his future career.
Eventually, yeah.
So it was a good launch pad for both characters. I think that's my point on that one.
Yeah,
great launch pad for both.
Next up, David Sammartino.
Yeah, finally there.
With yes, there we go. So no jumping the gun with Bruno.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I even made the mistake because it's funny because they're very similar wrestlers. They were very similar in the way they came across.
Yeah.
Obviously, David had kind of. This was very much. It was one of his only big matches in the WWE. He didn't really like Vince McMahon. He didn't.
Didn't he? Right.
Yeah, he didn't really like how he was dealt with at this pay-per-view. He didn't really like how he was dealt with going forward from there. He got a slight rub mainly because of his family legacy.
Yeah.
And he had a relatively short career. It went on for a few years post his WWE run, but he never really. He didn't reach the heights of his dad, but this was
big heights to sort of reach. Really.
This was a decent match. Obviously, it ended in slightly controversial fashion. The managers did get involved in this one, but I feel like David Sammartino, he hadn't found his feet. I don't think he was very comfortable in his role, and I think you could see that in the match.
He probably had a lot of pressure to match up to his dad.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of pressure there. I mean, you could see. I mean, this is almost gossip, really, but you can see that he wasn't fully comfortable within his role there, and his dad was very much in his ear almost. And it's actually interesting. There was an angle post the WrestleMania which was heavily involved around the family and the two teaming up. being a tag team for a little while. And Bruno actually commented that it's the worst part of his career.
Oh, really?
Was working with his son. Not because his son was a particularly bad worker, but just because the way the WWE kind of almost cashed in on the family thing.
Right.
And I think that Bruno acknowledges that David certainly wasn't the most comfortable.
Talented.
Not talented.
Right.
I think comfortable. So it's interesting to note that, and obviously, having. I think Beefcake looked really strong.
Well, that's who there was against. Yeah, so it was David Sammartino and Bruno Sammartino versus Brutus Beefcake.
Yeah, Bruno was the manager. Yeah, and
John Valiant. Yeah, Bruno was the manager. So Brutus Beefcake, who later became Brutus the Barber Beefcake,
indeed, classic
was
character.
In heel character at this time. He'd been introduced in the WWF in 1984, so a year earlier, in a vignette that portrayed him as a male stripper. So that right. Instant heel heat there. No one likes to see a male stripper. But Rick Rude later on would go to take that character in different directions. Yeah. All you sweat hogs.
Yeah, there you go.
He'd been feuding with Hillbilly Jim prior to WrestleMania. But in a segment where Hillbilly Jim was chasing Brutus, he slipped on some water and broke his leg.
No way.
So that's why Hillbilly Jim won at the first WrestleMania.
No way.
Yeah. And that had happened a couple of months prior, but still.
That's very unfortunate, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And then John Valiant had been in the WWE as a tag team champion, and he actually beat Bruno Sammartino and Dick the Bruiser to get the tag team champion. So part of the reason he was there as a manager was because there was that link with Bruno.
Yeah. And he came out of retirement. Like I say, that post WrestleMania angle was Bruno coming out of retirement, and again, that was a great thing for the fans to experience. But for them as performers, and for Bruno particularly, like I say, he was just not very comfortable, doing that.
I think it's great for the history books as well, because Bruno Sammartino was one of the biggest stars in wrestling in the 70s and the 60s. The 60s? Does it go back as far? It will, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was great to have him as part of the history of WrestleMania, I think. And even though it was sort of pushed in, if you like, by putting his son on, I think it was great to have him there. And it makes sense by Vince to put him in there.
Good business sense, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
From Vince there, yeah.
And what do you think about the match?
Like I say, not the best match. I thought the ending was kind of scrappy. I was very impressed with Brutus on the whole, on the complete opposites. He came across looking mega.
It's weird to see.
I thought David came across. I don't think it was a great showing for him particularly.
No.
It was a technical match, kind of slow. Obviously, if anybody's got any thoughts on it and disagrees with us at any point, that's fine. Would like to get people's viewpoints, but at the same time, I was very disappointed with David's performance. I thought, but again, I can understand a lot of pressure on him. Yeah. But I was very impressed with Bruce.
I don't think he was ready for it yet. I think if you'd given him a bit more actual training, but to put him on a massive platform like this, it was. There was a couple of real obvious leg slaps and stuff like that during the match to make it sound like a punch. And then the end of the match all got a bit messy. It was. Bruno went after Lucius, and then Johnny attacks David, and that was when the crowd really got into it. The crowd popped as soon as Bruno came out, and when Bruno got involved in the match, the crowd popped again, and that eventually ended in a double disqualification. Yeah, keeping both guys strong. There was a great bit where Lucius got thrown out of the ring, and he started. Oh no, it wasn't Lucius, was it? John Valiant, gets thrown out of the ring, and he starts punching the air. Yeah. And I love that classic wrestling character. He doesn't know where he is. He's gonna start punching the air. Brilliant.
I love stuff like that. Yeah, amazing.
Brilliant.
Amazing. All right, next match.
Next match was Greg the Hammer Valentine with Jimmy Hart again. Second appearance in WrestleMania 1. versus the Junkyard Dog.
JYD.
JYD.
One of my favourite characters in wrestling history.
He was great. And he was the first guy in Wrestlemania that I noticed anyway that had the entrance music.
Yes.
Which the crowd popped for, didn't they?
I think massively popular and one of the probably most underrated. I would have said certainly in my top 5 most underrated. I always thought they should have given. It wasn't for whatever reason, it wasn't the time for Junkyard Dog. I always thought he deserved a title run, a decent title run.
Yeah, I think he did. I think especially as there'd been no black person that had won the title.
Yeah,
until
absolutely.
The guy that won it was
Ron Simmons, wasn't it? Was the first?
No.
Wasn't he the first African?
He might have been.
Champion?
Ron Simmons might have been WCW. I can't remember.
I think it was. Was it? I can't remember who it was for the WWE.
It was a guy in the 90s, but I can't remember his name. Early 90s. We'll get back to that.
Yeah, there you
go. Back to Greg the Hammer Valentine with Jimmy Hart. Greg had been wrestling for about 15 years prior to the match, so he was a veteran wrestler. He'd been with the WWF for a chunk of that time, and he was one of the wrestlers that trained in Stu Hart's dungeon, which had obviously become a bigger part of the WWF. Because there were so many storylines involving Stu Hart's dungeon and Bret Hart.
It still pops up to this day, doesn't it? To be fair,
absolutely
legendary.
And he'd rejoined the WWF in 1984, and he'd won the Intercontinental Championship off Tito Santana. Yeah. So that was the whole reference earlier with the Tito, and obviously that carries on. Have you got out about Junkyard Dog?
Well, like I say, to be fair, Junkyard Dog, in this performance, I thought he came across very well. He was again one of those kind of mid-card guys that came across all the time in every showing that he had, right up until his last shows with the WWE. As a larger than life character,
he took
dog barks and he took all these things that he did, the headbutts on the mat. He took that and made them into believable things that could actually win matches, and it could actually change change the course of matches. He was a superhero, and I think that was the case. He was obviously inducted into the Hall of Fame not long ago.
Yeah,
I think that was the case. Yeah, I think he had a match with Heath Slater. In the last sort of 10 years. Yeah,
right.
when Heath was doing his
Legends
losing.
I've seen a bit
streak.
of that, but not the. No, I didn't know Junkyard Dog was one.
But Junkyard Dog is he incredible performer, and I was a massive fan of him. I think that with this performance, I think in Romania, I think like I say, you look at David San Martino and you look at how well people deal with these things.
Yeah.
Junkyard Dog, came out to the entrance music. He was on fire from day one. From the moment they told him to get out there, he was nailing it.
Well, one of the things is he knew how to hold a moment as well. So there was a moment in the match where he was going to headbutt Greg, and he sort of held him and waited and went to the audience. I'm about to do this. This is going to be great, and then did it. And again, it's about bringing the audience in and telling a story. And like you say, his character work was all there to tell that story.
Yeah.
And much like Ricky Dragon Steamboat, in a sense, he had his own style.
Absolutely.
And it's a style that nobody else had, that was interesting.
And he won by count out, which is the ultimate, ultimate kind of. We're not going to give you, like I said, we're not giving you the title, but we'll give you the win, and that's supposed to be just as good.
Well, he won by count out. However, it was because
Tito Santana came out, didn't he?
But it was before that. Greg. I thought Greg pinged him. I thought Greg pinned him. It was a dirty pin. It was his feet were on the rope, weren't they?
Yeah,
and then
Tito came out to correct him.
Yeah. So Tito comes out and he and says, we need to restart this match, which again is about the Tito Santana and Greg Valentine feud. Splitting them up. Why wouldn't you have Valentine and Santana together in the ring instead of Junkyard Dog for the first WrestleMania?
I don't know, man. I think it was good. It was a good build. I think it was all building towards Tito, and
I think also spread the talent out as well.
Yeah.
Don't necessarily have all your talent invested in one match. It's quite important as well.
Yeah. But again, the star power. They were going for star power. They were going for like I say, they were trying to make the fans hate on Valentine, and they were trying to make the fans hate on Jimmy on Hart, and I think that's. I mean, Jimmy Hart did a great job of that himself. I think that's the thing. Whereas I think Hammer's character work lacks or was lacking at the time. He needed the manager. He needed Jimmy Hart. And I think that the ending was very indicative of the fact that Greg Hammer, you know, he needed these people to kind of, in my opinion, just my opinion, he needed these people to make people hate him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it was good. I love a part of the match where Jesse Ventura says about the dirty pin, and he goes, "Oh, if you can get away with it, it's valid." You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
He sells it so well. Jesse
Ventura, man, one of the greatest of all time, doing very well for himself these days. In government, but
in the government now, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Funny old world, isn't it?
Well, we'll see when The Rock's president.
Absolutely. Hey, man, it's probably going to happen.
I know. Well, Trump can do it.
Yeah, exactly.
But let's not go into politics.
Yeah.
So the next match was Nikolai Volkov and the Iron Sheik with Freddie Blassie versus Mike Rotunda, Barry Windham with Lou Albano.
Lou Albano.
White hair with red eyes.
the US Express, Barry Windham and Mike Rotunda, of course. Wrestling dynasty there. You got the Bray Wyatt and Bo Dallas, all part of the family. For Rotunda.
Rotunda's their dad.
And obviously Windham. There's a massive wrestling history there in that family. A great tag team. Obviously they were the guys that carried the US through that feud. I've never been a big fan of WWE's reliance on the US versus other countries.
I agree.
This was its earliest form of that. To be fair, great isn't the right word. There was no terrible angle. There was no, Muhammad Hassan versus the Undertaker. Where the person that wasn't from America was going to get lynched or anything like that. I thought your tag team, the Iron Sheik, is an incredible personality. Always did a great job of kind of pushing that envelope a little bit, but not too far. I thought he was great. But then, the US Express, one of the greatest wrestling tag teams. I thought, of all time, I think one of the two greatest performers.
Big statement.
Yeah, one of the two greatest performers of all time individually as well. Thought the match was pretty good.
Fast-paced.
Yeah, considering, and I thought that for the angle that they were going for, I thought it came across very well, and it was quite respectful. Compared to what the WWE has done in past years. Obviously, the crowd were really into it because everyone back in the day. I think it's an arguable point. I think the crowd are a lot less bothered these days about patriotism. In terms of what they want from their angles. Obviously, we're all patriotic, and WWE fans are very patriotic, but people are less interested now in USA chants.
You say that, and we've got Jinder Mahal as the current champion.
Well, yeah, I suppose. Fair enough.
But it's not been done for a while as well.
No, but like I say, I think that the heels in the match did a very good job of playing their role. There was a lot of quite underhanded tactics. Obviously, the management getting involved as well.
Because obviously the title's on the line in this match as well. And Nikolai Volkov, just a little bit of history about him. He'd again received his training from Stu Hart in 1970, so probably in the same class, if that's what it was, in his dungeon, as Greg the Hammer Valentine. He moved to the USA from Yugoslavia, so that was obviously his background. And he'd initially been with the WWF in 1970, but returned in 1984, and that's when he formed the tag team with Iron Sheik. The Iron Sheik started wrestling in 1972. He wore wrestling boots with a curled up toe. The
Love
Xavier Woods. Well, it's weird. Do you know who suggested that to him? Jimmy Snuka was the one that you should wear this because it's a reference to your cultural background.
There you go.
I haven't really seen them shoes in any sort of culture, but and to this day, out of all the wrestlers from Wrestlemania 1, he's one of the wrestlers that still wrestles I think there's Hulk Hogan.
Yeah,
that occasionally
he does some stuff on the Independents, doesn't he? I think
he does. Yeah. So you can still see the Iron Sheik from WrestleMania 1. And then Freddie Blassie, of course, was their manager.
He got involved,
he did get involved. He was part of the win of the match.
Smack Wyndham with the cane, yeah.
He did, yeah. He started his management career in 1974. He'd previously been a wrestler. And obviously his gimmick was with the cane, and obviously that got involved in most matches as well. Blassie had managed the Sheik when he beat Bob Buckland for the WWF Championship earlier on in the year. And then obviously the start of the match, you have Volkov coming out and wanting to sing the national anthem.
Yeah, of course.
What a great way to get here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's made even worse by the fact that you can hear the feedback in the microphone.
Yeah, totally.
As he's singing, and the crowd are proper going for him all the way through.
Totally against him, which is, like I say, a great match in terms of, while it was kind of decent pace.
It was really, really fast compared to a lot of the other matches.
Classic WWE, heels versus faces, ending and structure.
Yeah.
Where the heels get the win by cheating, which again gives the faces the rub, the positive rub, and doesn't send the fans home rioting. But then of course the heels look very strong as well. Actually, the MTV special had been where the US Express had won the titles, so it was a nice little carry on from that to the pay-per-view, again to gauge interest and to create interest in the pay-per-view. So
right. Next up, unless you've got anything else to say about Big John Studd with Bobby the Brain Heenan, one of the greatest managers of all time, I think. Some great managers in this actually. In this pay-per-view versus Andre the Giant.
Absolutely. Body slam challenge.
The
slam heard around the world.
Well, they say that.
It wasn't,
The slam that was hit.
It's the most iconic body slam in wrestling history, though.
No, it's not. 3 years later, WrestleMania 3, Hulk Hogan body slams Andre the Giant. That's the body slam that was heard around the world.
Well, probably in terms of actual sonic power, then yes, because obviously Andre the Giant was a huge monster of a man. But this was the very first time, they built John Studd to be, and he wasn't that massive, but they built him to be this thing. And so I believe that this is truly the slam heard around the world, because it was the very first time that and obviously built these two behemoth characters up to this level, and I thought it was incredible. I thought it was really well done, except for the pace of the match. But then at the same time with these two guys. But then when you look at guys like these days, guys like even the Big Show and how they move.
Luke Harper.
Different time. Luke Harper's probably the same size as maybe John Studd's a little bit bigger, but you know what I mean, like an Eric Rowan. The way Eric Rowan moves, he's definitely around the same size as Big John Studd.
Yeah, I think so.
And the way that he moves, I mean, again, different times, different expectations. There's more expectations on performers these days. But I thought the match itself, apart from the slam, was very slow. I mean, Andre couldn't do a lot of things, but the bear hug for about 5 minutes. And that was the majority of the match, correct? And I mean, again, Andre the Giant is an icon, and I respect his legacy, of course. But the match itself, not really a lot to say about the match itself, apart from the fact it was slow and the fact that Andre got the slam. Of course, the crowd loved it. Obviously, giving away the money at the end.
Yeah, because it was a
nice touch.
If Big John Studd could slam Andre the Giant, Andre the Giant would retire. Yeah. And if Andre won, he got the $15K. Yeah. Which was just dollar bills in a really bad WWF knapsack.
Yes.
I mean, it was,
and then of course Heenan comes and grabs it off him.
Takes the money back, because that's what Heenan does. A little bit of information about Andre the Giant. The reason for his massive size was because he suffered from giganticism. And in his later wrestling career, it was causing his matches to look a struggle. And to be honest, we was getting to that era now.
Yeah.
He'd been wrestling with the WWF for a long time. He was a massive face. He'd never lost a match. He was undefeated up to this point. So why Big John Studd thought he'd retire him, I don't know.
You always have to have that foil. You always have to have the foil, though, man. You always have to have that. Don't you?
Yeah,
the guy that thinks he's going to do it but never does, you know.
He was actually, in the early 80s, he had a string of matches, and this is sort of important because the Andre Hogan thing was massive. And I think brought wrestling to the mainstream media big time because it was, you know, newsworthy material. That he'd feuded with Hulk Hogan earlier on before this match. However, he was the face and Hogan was still the heel, which is mad to think about. Like, I can't imagine Hogan as a heel until sort of the NWO era, you know, and stuff like that with WCW. And he died in his sleep of congestive heart failure in 1993.
There you go.
Yeah, so
they had a good life on him, to be fair, you know, considering everything.
There's a lot of stories, I believe. Ones that I don't even know.
Backstage stories. I
think they're making a film of him, or a TV show.
I think Andre the Giant's drinking abilities are legendary due to his size.
Absolutely.
And also, oddly enough, his flatulence in the ring.
Yeah,
there's a couple of stories about his overall odor.
Because he couldn't fit in showers when they were staying in motels, and he used to have sweat, and he used to wring the sweat out and stuff. Apparently
onto the wrestlers. It was part of his appeal.
Not his appeal to other wrestlers, I guess.
Perhaps not. But yeah, good match. Iconic for the right reasons, again, because of the slam. I thought that, like I say, I thought that it was good. The pace was terribly slow.
It was, yeah.
But, overall, for what they were trying to do, I think it achieved its goal.
I think at that time it was okay for the match to be that slow because it was that was just accepted in the WWF for giants.
Indeed.
Next up, we had Wendy Richter with Cyndi Lauper versus Lilian Kai with the fabulous Moolah.
Yeah, Lani Kai.
Lani, sorry.
Wendy Richter. Yeah. I think obviously as a women's match, this was all about the star power. I think that a lot of these athletes were good, and again in those MTV shows, this again the titles had changed hands.
Yeah.
So it, again this match was very much to build for us. Was very much built upon in previous weeks at the MTV specials. That
having a star like Cyndi Lauper, the MTV would have lapped it all up.
Of course,
it was a great connection, really.
And Cyndi Lauper was there with her manager. I think everyone was trying to get in on the star power of Mania.
Yeah, and this is where the star power all started going through the roof, really.
Yeah, at the time, and obviously, the Lani Kai with the fabulous Moolah, iconic performer. Yeah, by all accounts, not a very nice person, but
Moolah.
Moolah, but an iconic person in the business. I think that the way Lauper got involved again. And they have this at WrestleMania. The stars, for some strange reason, have to get involved in the matches in some form. To be honest, I think it's kind of ridiculous. When you got Cyndi Lauper's an incredible personality, an incredible artist, but it was all about making the fans pop, and it was all about that. And I think it's very cheap. To be honest,
Cyndi Lauper, you could see, loved it though as well.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you get a lot of celebrities that don't care about it, but Cyndi Lauper, you could tell, was really invested in it.
She was involved in a lot.
She was
involved in a lot of WrestleManias and wrestling angles, I think, going forward too.
The music video for Girls Just Want to Have Fun had Lou Albano in it as well, or Albino. If you
Lou Albino.
So there's another connection with wrestling. Cyndi Lauper for the younger audience was a massive pop star. Sang Girls Don't Want to Have Fun and other hits in America in the 1980s. Wendy Richter.
I'm not going to make you list them off.
I don't think I could, man.
Yeah.
It's not my bag.
Very,
baby.
very, very good. Very good.
See your true colours.
Shining through that one.
Yeah. Nice. I didn't realise he was going to sing.
Oh man, you're going to see a lot of weird shit from me. And Wendy, see, Lalani Kai, she was where was she billed from in this? I think Hawaii or something. I don't know, but
she possibly. She had a real Hawaiian feel to it, didn't she?
Yeah, no.
But did you know that she trained Wendy Richter?
Wendy Richter, did she really?
Yeah. She trained her at the and this is ironic as well. She trained her at the Fabulous Moolah School of Academy.
There you go.
So obviously, wrestling's not real.
I'm going to be a little bit controversial here, but I don't think either of those performers have great personality. I thought that they were kind of the managers. The pop stars carried that match for, and that's probably quite controversial. I'm not saying they weren't good workers. I'm not saying that Lani Kai wasn't a good worker, Wendy Richter especially, but the managers, the artists, performers, pop stars, whatever you want to call them, carried that match for everybody.
Yeah, involved. I think that it was really sloppy, and I said this to you when we was watching it. When you see someone like Charlotte or Becky Lynch or any sort of modern wrestler. Who in the women division is amazing at the minute.
Of course.
When you see them do it, you believe it because they've got the strength. And this felt really sloppy. There was a couple of slams and stuff like that where it almost felt like the other person was going to go over. Mm-hmm. There was no sort of strength there.
Like really. I say, I think that we have to bear in mind that there's a lot more restrictions on women's performers back in the day. I think that there was a lot less pressure and a lot less almost care. I'm perhaps hesitant to say, but people didn't really, that there was a lot less expectation on the women's performers. I think.
Yeah, well,
there was a great, obviously, the legacy of women like Moolah, it demonstrates that people did, especially the female audience of WWE, which I know was much less than it is now. The audience demographic for women. The legacy of Moolah and those kind of female performers was good, but again, it was still very much considered, sadly enough, as like you say, rather a toilet break kind of match. And again, if anybody's got a counterpoint, we're happy to hear about it.
I don't think it is the case anymore.
But we're saying we're looking at back in the day. We're looking back at that time.
It was a pre-main event match.
And so, while those performers might have taken the match seriously, I don't believe that their performance wasn't great. Like Kai, Richter, Wendy Richter particularly had a particularly strong career, more of an iconic career than Kai did.
Yeah.
But in this particular showing, it was probably the poorest match, and I'm talking even with Bundy. And SD Jones. I thought it was this match, and this is nothing against the women involved. I thought it was the poorest match on the card, personally.
Poorest match of WrestleMania 1. So what? There was an interview afterwards as well. That was really funny with Cyndi Lauper, and she's all into it, and selling it as well as she could, and she had lipstick all over her teeth.
That stuff happens. Live television, that's absolutely fine. Live television is fine, and obviously, the fact she was into it so much, it was good.
She was.
Did you notice how Mean Gene Okerlund kept cutting people off though? I really hated that. I know they didn't have a lot of time. It was pre-recorded. It was pre-recorded actually, so they were all recorded earlier on in the day. But I've as an interviewer myself, I find it very difficult. I find it very annoying when you cut people off mid-sentence, and he was doing that.
So anyway,
that was probably my most. Sorry, that was probably
cut you off.
Yeah, that was probably my most annoying thing of the whole card. Even with the matches, was Mean Gene Okerlund cutting everybody off in the pre-show.
But if not, the talk rubbish forever.
Andre the Giant was proper going for it.
Andre the Giant was proper happy.
He was going for it, and he had like a whole other sentence, a whole other thing, and Mean Gene was like, "Nope, see you later,
gone,
bye." Okay, and we've got main event time now, right?
Yeah, let's talk about the main event of WrestleMania, which was, let's talk a little bit about the people coming out to the ring who were the celebrities at WrestleMania, because there was a hell of a lot of celebrities in this event.
Liberace, right? Wasn't there?
Liberace, who was an American singer, actor, pianist.
Pretty much across the board.
Yeah.
Entertainment.
So he come on with the Showgirls. There was a guest timekeeper.
Oh yeah.
It was some baseball player. Baseball's not a massive sport in England, so I couldn't even tell you. But again, big star in the US. Massive pop from the crowd. So this is building up. You've got these two celebrities. You've got these can girls come out with Liberace, and they're all doing the can. And then you have a boxer called Muhammad Ali, who is potentially one of the most famous
the most famous boxer of all time.
Yeah.
Again, a questionable character perhaps, but one of the greatest performers of all time. And
absolutely,
he loved the wrestling. He loved the wrestling business and the whole vibe.
And this helps legitimize wrestling as well, because when you get a star like Muhammad Ali, who had already had great matches at this point with Joe Frazier and stuff like this, to have him as part of your main event, even though he wasn't in the match, is massive, and it legitimizes it. In the same way, later on in Wrestlemania, I can't remember which Wrestlemania it was, it had Mike Tyson as a special guest referee, and again, it brings in the whole sports crowd to watch wrestling, which is what they're constantly doing
massive,
nowadays.
Isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. It's a big thing throughout history. Like I say, I wish that there was a little bit less focus on the celebrities, but at the same time, it's needed to
draw people in,
to fill those seats and draw people, especially people that aren't necessarily into wrestling. WrestleMania is traditionally the pay-per-view, that brings people either back into the sport or the sports entertainment, or brings it to them for the first time because of the association with the celebrities. And don't forget, obviously, you have Mr. T in the match itself.
Mr. T, another celebrity,
so
in
of course
the match,
he is in the match itself.
But a little thing about Muhammad Ali, he was actually due to be the referee for the match, not the ringside referee, which actually made him. But when he arrived at the venue, he seemed really off, and Pat Patterson, who ended up being the referee, went to Vince McMahon and said, he seems a bit off, he doesn't seem himself. I don't think that we can put him in as the referee. I don't think he can hold the match together. So they decided to put him on the outside and have Pat referee, which I think was a great idea, because even during the match, you see Muhammad Ali get involved in the most peculiar of ways. We'll talk about that when we get to the match.
Indeed.
But, so then we actually get to the match. So we've got all these celebrities, three big celebrities, already in the ring. And then the match was Rowdy Roddy Piper with Paul Orndorff. And Cowboy Bob Orton was their manager, if you like. Although they didn't really announce it as manager. I think it was just sort of to push him in there.
There was a lot. Too many cooks in the kitchen for this match, personally.
Yeah. Oh, there was, yeah.
Even though that, we all know the celebrity status is needed, I thought it was a bit too much.
And there was against...
I don't think there's ever been more of a more celebrity-packed match since then. They probably learnt from the situation.
I can't think of one.
No.
But then the... you don't need it. And, so Rowdy Roddy Piper, Paul Orndorff, Cowboy Bob Orton versus Hulk Hogan with Mr. T and Superfly Jimmy Snuka, who wasn't here, actually, who wasn't in an event earlier, which surprised me actually until I read about something. So I'll talk a little bit about Hulk Hogan.
Indeed,
he's a wrestler. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of him. First thing, he was 32 in this match.
Really? Yeah.
We're like 31, and I'm receding, and you're getting very wrinkly. But like Hulk Hogan was 32. He was a year older than us.
Yeah.
And he looks 70. He looks like Hulk Hogan's always looked.
Yeah, he does.
Which I just found weird, man. Do I look like Hulk Hogan?
Close enough.
Close enough. If I have a bit of tan.
Close enough.
This was his part of his second run with the WWF, and between this point and then Hulkamania had really kicked off within the sort of 3 years, so he was a massive fan favourite. He was also reaching out cross-brand. He started to do films. He'd done a film a while ago, which was Rocky 3, which Mr. T, who was his tag team partner, was also in. So there was a connection there, and they'd actually become real-life friends.
Yeah, absolutely. They were like best friends at this point.
Yeah. The first time he won his WWF Championship was against Iron Sheik the year before.
The WWF Championship.
WWEF, yeah. It's even confusing in my head.
The WWF Championship.
WWF Championship was the year before WrestleMania, and it was against the Iron Sheik, and he was the first man to escape the camel clutch.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go. That's cool, isn't it?
Yeah, and his championship reign, the championship reign that was part of WrestleMania 1, although the championship wasn't on the line, which seems to devalue the belt a little bit, doesn't it? Instead of having a title match, you have a big tag team celebrity nonsense. His championship reign was actually the third longest behind Bruno Sammartino and Bob Backlund. And that still holds today. And a little bit about Mr. T. Mr. T was a
Mr. T.
TV and film star. He was best known for his roles in Rocky 3 in the A-Team for the younger fans.
Of course.
He was very much a character, wasn't he? You very much recognise.
Yeah, and he still is a character.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Earlier on it was either earlier on in the day or later on. It was a WWE book that I'd read this in because it had come out recently. He'd fired an employee backstage.
Really?
Yeah, he was apparently a real difficult person to work with during this WrestleMania because there was a lot of friction between him and the rest of the wrestlers. Obviously, the firing didn't stick, but it was still there. He'd been a nuisance backstage, and he was quoted by Gene Okerlund as one of the most unprofessional pieces of work I have ever had the displeasure of being associated with.
Wow. That's
pretty harsh
and
words.
That's from Mean Gene.
That's Mean Gene.
Cutting everybody off in the news.
Mr. T earlier on in the day had issues getting his entourage into the building, so he was ready to skip the show, basically. And so all this planning and all the marketing, which was Hulk Hogan and Mr. T. You can imagine it, can't you?
Yeah, and I can understand where Roddy Piper's issues, come from with that, because obviously that's something you were going to talk about.
Yeah.
Mr. T, obviously a dick.
Obviously.
Mr. T, you're a dick.
But then he appeared in WrestleMania 2 as well, and he appeared at other points, and he was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2014.
That's true. Still a dick.
Yeah. Donald Trump's also inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame.
Massive dick. Not in a good way.
The political opinion didn't really affect anything. And then Jimmy Snuka, who also come in with him. Sorry, there's a lot of information.
Yeah, well, Jimmy Snuka was actually there because Piper hit him over the head with a coconut.
Yeah, great. Have you seen that
during
segment?
A Piper's Pit? Yeah,
that Piper's Pit.
Piper's Pit.
And when he slams that coconut on his head, it splits perfectly.
Yeah,
you couldn't cut it in half even any smoother. He was. He was originally supposed to be in the tag team with Hulk Hogan until Mr. T was brought in. So obviously everyone had a lot of animosity to Mr. T.
Yeah.
The wrestling guys didn't feel like he should be there because he wasn't a wrestler. So people like Roddy Piper and that had issues with it.
Massive exception to it.
Jimmy Snuka were put to a sideline because of this celebrity. So there was a lot of animosity backstage. Jimmy Snuka, he was known as a high flyer. And even though we didn't see any flying in this match whatsoever. And one of his most famous moments prior to this was where he'd leapt off a cage onto Bob Backlund in 1982 at the Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, which obviously birthed Mick Foley's career.
Not just Mick Foley though. There was a couple of wrestlers that were in attendance that night. There was the Sandman.
Nice.
There was Tommy Dreamer and Bubba Ray Dudley.
That explains a lot.
All of them have said that moment was part of the reason that they got into wrestling, professional wrestling, and
probably explains a lot of the risk taking and the ECW vibe being there as well, because that was a big moment, a big extreme moment,
a big spot, if you like, and it had never been seen before. We've seen it several times now.
Well, yeah, but it's funny, isn't it? They always come back to that.
Yeah, well, you've got to, because that's what inspired stuff, and going back to WrestleMania 1, you can see where stuff's been inspired from and taken from. So he'd actually he'd checked himself into a rehabilitation centre not long before WrestleMania, and so WWF created a storyline which involved Roddy Piper breaking his neck. It didn't happen, but that was a storyline to get him out because he was needed to go to the rehabilitation centre. So, but they still wanted him as the part of the talent on the card. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in '96, and his daughter Tamina is a current WWE wrestler. And do you know his son?
What? Snooker's son?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. You put me on the spot.
I'll put you on the spot. I'm quizzing you.
Go on.
Deuce. He wrestled as Deuce in Sim Snooker for the WWE between 2007 and 2009. I think he had a tag team championship at one point.
Really?
Yeah, Deuce.
Interesting.
There you go.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, that's all right. Have you got any information on any of the other guys that were in the match? Cowboy Bob Orton and...
Well, obviously you got Bob Orton, Randy's dad. Like I say,
Randy Orton's dad.
He had a signature cast which kind of didn't come off when it should have done. The cast was a pretty much constant fixture of Bob Orton's character in his managerial career, which again came into play in the match itself. Obviously, these characters. Really important to the overall progression of Wrestlemania and the story. It was almost like a war of factions in the early days. You had all these guys in there who were trying to one up each other. There was a lot of that as well.
Yeah.
A lot of competition, and a lot of one upsmanship, which I noticed.
Yeah.
Again, probably the earliest form of like there was a lot of things I think Vince McMahon will have learned from that. WrestleMania, how to manage a massive group of egos, probably one of them. Obviously, you got guys in there, Hulk Hogan, who became massive, but I think that it was quite, like I say, the whole thing felt like a massive learning curve for everybody involved. It wasn't necessarily a weak performance from people, but it wasn't the strongest performance you'll ever see. Roddy Piper, I believe, was the strongest performer of the whole pay-per-view. I think his character work.
Piper is great, but also I think you can feel the animosity.
Oh yeah, 100%. But they work really well together. To their credit, they work really well together on the, on the whole thing. And obviously, there's a lot of. I think it was just classic WWE fan favourites. Guys like Snooker, and Hogan and Mr. T. Just triumphing over the adversity presented to them by Piper, who's this kind of almost, he was alongside, in my opinion, Jake the Snake Roberts, probably the classic WWE villain of that period.
Yeah, and then become a cracking babyface as well, like after he filmed They Live and come back.
I mean, like I say, he was performing fairly late into his life, wasn't he? He was Roddy Piper. I think he did a couple of spots on Raw's.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
looking back at the history books.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
doing again. I think he had a couple of run-ins with good old Heath Slater. But I mean, there was a lot to learn from this pay-per-view, and obviously we're going to look at future pay-per-views coming up, and we'll see how Vince and his team put everything together. But I believe that Hogan was probably one of his weakest showings was this pay-per-view. Mr. T was abysmal.
I mean, there was a point early on in the match where he didn't even sell Roddy's slaps.
Yeah, you know what? Credit to Roddy Piper and Mr. T for working together and holding it together, but that was a shit show.
Well, the ironic thing is they worked together the next year at WrestleMania in an even worse match. Even clever people follow the money, and they were following the money for sure. And if you keep following the channel, it'll be
absolutely
WrestleMania
2, and
we'll be going through that.
We'll try and look less haggard and Hulk Hogan-esque.
So there's a point in the match where Muhammad Ali gets into the ring and starts going to hit people. No idea why. I mean,
that was the crowd pop thing. I think was big for the crowd. That.
If you've got someone like Muhammad Ali at ringside, surely you want to give him space. And for whatever reason, they seem to have all these photographers come in, and so on watching it back on the network. It's so difficult to sort of see. It feels really messy. That's not to say it's not good, because it is a spectacle, and spectacles, and especially at that time and that pay-per-view, it felt special compared to the rest of the matches. When the three wrestlers are in the ring, when it's Hulk Hogan, Piper, and not Orton, Mr. Wonderful, Paul Ordenoff, there are some really good spots. There's some really good double team moves, and there's, you know, and it feels like they could have had a great match potentially if Snooker had been put in instead of Mr. T. But as it happens, it isn't. Obviously, Orton jumps off the top rope.
Yeah, with
a double axe handle.
The cast, yeah.
With the cast to go and
he hits Orndorff, doesn't he?
Yeah, he hits Orndorff. But did you see in the slow motion replay how obvious that was? He was sort of coming down and then realised that he was actually completely way off the mark, or the Hulk hadn't turned Orndorff around enough. So he's sort of like, he's doing the double axe handle and then throws his arm off the other way to like just make sure he at least catches him with something. So that completely knocks him out, obviously. No Hulk leg drop.
Nope.
In this match.
Too much going on, man.
Too much. Yeah, well, yeah. So, but you say too much going on, but then at the same time, this is like a really weird finish as well, you know?
Yeah.
There was way too much going on.
Chaos, man.
So, yeah, it was an okay match.
It was okay. Like, for what it was and for what they were trying to do with it.
Spectacle.
It fit the job as a spectacle, but as a wrestling match, pretty atrocious.
No.
You know, not necessarily the best ending, but for us. But I think that you know, like I say, it was the best match on that card. It was not the main event at all.
Oh, what do you think was the best match then?
You know what? I'm going to give it to SD and King Kong. No, I'm kidding. You know what? Like, you know, I thought that, like I say, you know, you got Ricky Steamboat. That was good.
Your match of the night?
That would be my match of the night. Yeah.
I think my match of the night would have to be the main event. I know that I just don't think any of the
worst match.
I think it's important, and it's like
it's important for buzz, man. It's important.
But I didn't really feel much from anything else, you know. So I'd probably have to go with the main event, as chaotic as it was. At least there was some spectacle there. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, I guess the spectacles. But then is that what it is, man? Is it all just spectacle?
No, it's not.
Are we supposed to enjoy, you know, WWE for its spectacle, or are we supposed to enjoy the for its action?
But I can't say that I enjoyed any of the action previously. I can't say that there was a stand-up match. And don't get me wrong, I'm not just talking about early wrestling, because there are some early wrestling matches that are phenomenal.
Do you think that was intentional? Do you think
it was all built, sell the main event more?
Yeah, do you think it was all built towards the main event?
Potentially, because that's where you're getting eyes from.
Yeah,
you know, I know there was a lot of risk with WrestleMania 1. They'd put a lot of money into it. They'd put a lot of money into buying closed-circuit television. I don't know exactly how that works, but I know that Linda McMahon was quoted as saying she was waiting until 3 a.m. to get the results back, and then they found out that they broke even, and they were so happy that they managed to break even.
Yeah.
So
no.
Not
for me, man.
It was chaotic.
Not for me.
But I don't think there was.
I'm pleased because obviously we wouldn't have the product we do now. And I'm such a fan of the product in its current form. But at the same time, Starrcade and that the alternative wrestling company were doing better matches for me, and they were more appreciative of wrestling as an art form.
Agree.
But again, this is the ongoing battle that every podcast and every person who's a wrestling fan will have. You know, how much of it is, you know, how much of it is entertainment and how much of it is action and that kind of thing. You know, that's why you got guys like Daniel Bryan today carrying that kind of. It should be less about, you know, spectacle and glitz and glamour, and more about wrestling. And I am of that opinion to a point.
Yeah.
This pay-per-view was all glitz and glamour and very very little substance.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah. There wasn't much wrestling. I agree with you completely.
But that's so my gay star rating for this pay-per-view is 2 out of 5.
2 out of 5. I'd probably go 1.5 out of 5.
You're giving it less than me.
Yeah. Why did you think you was low?
I thought you were low. I thought I was low. Yeah.
No. It's if it was out of 5. I mean, I've seen WrestleMania 3. That was a way better pay-per-view.
We're going to get to that real soon.
And if you stay watching the channel, you'll be able to see that. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Is
Yep.
there anything else we need to say closing off?
Patreon / Gimme a Hull Yeah. Facebook, Gimme a Hull Yeah. Twitter, Gimme a Hull Yeah. Gimme a Hull Yeah.
Yeah, hit the subscribe button, leave your comment down below,
All that
it'll
stuff.
all help out the channel.
We'll take your hate, we'll take your love, whatever you got. Keep it gay, everyone.